It has come to my attention that Blitz Esports has been funded by Riot Games, the developer of League of Legends. Now, Blitz Esports, formerly Instant Esports, is one of the best esports content outlets in my opinion. They specialize in high production value sit-down interviews and edited analytical breakdowns, which you might have interesting detail. They often actually have a different person do the voiceover than actually did a lot of the research for the piece, but as a result, come out with a stronger piece because they have someone with better showmanship and presence on the mic. Now, Blitz Esports is funded at some level, seemingly initially, by Riot Games. Apparently, they were initial investor into Instant Esports before it became rebranded as Blitz Esports. This has been confirmed to be by multiple sources, and these sources claim that Riot Games could actually even be seen on the cap table when the company was taking future rounds of investment. Now, for those who, like me, don't know what that means, cap table means a capitalization table, and that is a table providing an analysis of a company's percentages of ownership, equity dilution, and value of equity in each round of investment by the founders, investors, and other owners. Now, I was able to find a mention of a connection with Riot, which implied as much, but didn't explicitly say that, in a post on March 8th on Medium, which was actually announcing Blitz Esports, so in other words, the rebranding, relaunch from Instant Esports, and it was by Rick Ling, who at the time's listed as the CEO of Blitz Esports, and it said, at the end of this post, "We're extremely fortunate to have been supported by partners who understand our mission, that fueling the passion of fans always comes first. Huge thanks to Y Combinator, Jason Ostheimer from Advance Capital, Jeremy Fiance from the House Fund, Clinton Foy from Crosscut Ventures, Anjnay Midha from KPCB Edge, Greg Rosen from Box Group, Josh Ellman from Greylock Partners, and the team at Riot Games." Now, you'll note when they say that, they've just listed them as a partner. So you don't know what context that is. You don't know necessarily if you're just a member of the public and a pleb like me. Does partner mean you in any way have invested, or that you own part of the company, or that you have any kind of say over the company? They don't really explicitly say that. Now, interestingly enough, all those people listed before, if you go to the sites that I'll put in the description box below, where you can see listed investors in some of these companies, you'll see that pretty much all of them are invested into this company. Now, as far as I'm aware, definitely not an expert on this topic, know nothing about the law, you don't actually have to declare or publicly state who the initial investors are into a private company, as Blitz Esports, formerly Instant Esports, is. So why is this significant? Well, first of all, I think it's just a value that people are aware of this information, and that when they see content on the Blitz Esports channel, whether it's about Riot Games or people relate to Riot Games or other companies such as rival companies of Riot Games, I think it's valuable that people at least have in the back of their mind, right, there is a connection between Riot Games and Blitz Esports, and simply are aware of that, and then have that as context for how they see the information presented. Now, in this case, you could also think of a story that Richard Lewis published, which I'll link his video, where he exposed the fact that Jens Hilger's company, Minecraft, had an ownership stake in the Esports Observer, which is also presented as an independent outlet that was reporting on esports. Again, doing some good work at times, but hadn't really explicitly or gone out of their way to make clear the connection between them and Jens Hilger's company. So as a result, when they then report on teams like G2, which Jens Hilger's had an ownership in, stake in, then you need to know that information, or rather it's of value to you, the public, to know that, as opposed to if you don't, and then there might be a suspicious context that wouldn't make sense to you or wouldn't arise your suspicions if you didn't know that information. Now, again, as referenced, as far as I've been informed, they don't legally have to declare it themselves. Personally, I think ethically it is worth noting, and you probably should make it clear, especially if you ever report on Riot Games or people related to Riot Games, or even a rival of Riot Games in that sense. Like if you report on the Overwatch League and did something where, for example, you were to be critical of its potential success, I think you should probably mention, by the way, our company was funded by Riot Games, a competitor of this game and league. Again, because it informs the public. You want the public, if you're a journalistic source, quite frankly, to be as informed as possible and to have the necessary information to draw context for themselves if you don't indeed provide that context yourself. Now, As I mentioned, they have hinted at as much before, but I don't know that you'd necessarily take that away or that many people are actually aware of that. Now, obviously, the main reason why I need to bring this up and make people aware of this is there is a potential conflict of interest here. Now, this is a company that recently did interviews with new team owners for the NALCS about the process and their thoughts on it and how the league's structured, etc. But again, partially funded by Riot. So that's good information to know, right? I'm not making any implication but what was said in those interviews or the way the interviews were conducted, because in fact, this is something I want to stress in this part of the video. They have actually shown no signs of their journalistic ethics in their work being conflicted in any way or any kind of conflict of interest to how they have done their reporting. Actually, I think their interviews generally are very good. I mean, I noticed actually they employ the kind of Graham Bensinger style where you take a long interview and you break it up into the separate topics and you put each of those out. That way you have more chances of people seeing each interview. People can see just the topic can draw them in from the title. You can get more Reddit success. It's definitely got a lot of benefits to it. And I can certainly see why if you spent so much money on the production, you might go ahead and do it that way. I'd even say for younger interviewers, perhaps it's even a better approach. I personally don't do it with mine just because, I mean, I just like to have a long interview video, and I've never been as that cynical just on my own channel. Like I can make it with my own living. Now, I will say, not only are their interviews very good, but they've even done interviews which actually would go against the grain of thinking there's conflict of interest. For example, they interviewed my friend and colleague Monte Cristo, actually specifically about his problems, and they even titled it his caster crucifixion with Riot Games. So if anything, they're playing against the narrative that in some way they're having to play nice with Riot or they can't report on certain things. Likewise, when they interviewed someone from the Golden Guardians, one of the new LCS franchises, they actually asked this person about the multiple ownership issue that exists, where obviously Golden Guardians has a connection to Golden State Warriors, but one of the guys from the Golden State Warriors also invested into Team Liquid, which is a conflict of interest and goes against Riot's rules and Riot's policy from the past couple of years, and in fact how they structured the LCS in the first place. So again, they're bringing up topics that you might not expect if there was a conflict of interest. So I'm certainly not in any way suggesting any kind of wrongdoing. I do think ethically they probably should make it more clear that they have investment in this sense, or in some way pay off the investment and therefore don't have to. That would be another route. But I think it's just a value that people are aware this is something that's going on, especially within the industry, but on a more wide scale context, so that then when you see their content, which is very good, you at least have this in the back of your mind, who is funding this, and therefore who there is the potential there could be a conflict of interest involved with, or could be informing anything about the way this company's run. With that said, fantastic esports site.
I'm Kelsey Moser, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel, where no sandbagging goes unscrutinized.